Hi there, I'm Miranda.
And I'm Parker.
And this is our Cosplay Safety video.
So some of you may know from our earlier videos that we attend conventions together, and we also spend a lot of time in costume because we do work for Princesses with a Purpose, which is a non-profit organization that has us dressing up as fairy tale characters a lot. We're here to talk about why this cosplay safety video is important, why it's important to know the things we're going to talk about, and how we handle them having to work in costume.
And we want to give you some of our tips and tricks that keep us safe on the weekends and can also help you at conventions. So the first bullet point that we kind of want to go over is knowing your con. There's hundreds of different conventions that you can attend out there. One of the most important things is to know what type of convention you're attending. There's MGA Con, which is our local con in our hometown, and it's a very family-based con. You wouldn't want to wear anything that's like too overly provocative, just because there's so many families and so many children that are going to be there, versus
we go to Dragon Con for Labor Day weekend, and we are well aware that Dragon Con is essentially just don't be completely naked. That's just kind of the convention it is. It's nerdy girl.
The difference in the rules are definitely very large. And when you go to a convention, you should definitely look up the rules. You should look up what is expected at the con and what is expected of you as a cosplayer.
And in addition to just knowing your costumes, it's also the same as having to check your props. Props can be seen as dangerous depending on what you're making. You can't bring a sword to a convention that's a real sword without having it zip tied and make sure that you can't actually unsheath it. It's important, and as a prop maker, I'm well aware that you have to look up the rules. So just think about it as props. Think about it's for your own safety as well as the safety of others. Alright, so now we're going to talk about a pretty big part of conventions. You're going to see a ton of photographers and videographers everywhere. And the important thing for photographers to remember is that you always have to ask permission for somebody to take a picture, whether they're con goers or cosplayers. Always ask permission. There are specific poses that the cosplayers as characters want to be seen as. They've worked really hard on these costumes and they'd rather you not take pictures of them when they're not at their best. So make sure to ask permission, and if someone tells you that they don't want to give you permission for whatever reason it may be, don't take their picture and don't pester them about it. You never know what anybody's reasons are.
Also make sure, photographers, that if you have a card, give it to the cosplayer. And cosplayers, if you have a card, make sure that you give it to the photographer so that you can always get those pictures back and you can also be credited on both sides.
It also helps if you end up not liking a picture that ends up on the internet. You can talk to the photographer yourself and let them know, and they'll take it down for you, hopefully.
So something that's really important to remember is always having your bag and your money with you. I know that at a lot of different conventions, especially the convention that you're at, whether it's a bigger one or a smaller one, there's always going to be a chance that your stuff gets stolen. So always make sure that you know what your bag looks like. And for us, I know as character performers, we like to have bags that kind of fit our characters. And for example, Rapunzel has a satchel.
And Tinkerbell has a bag.
And it also helps us know what our bags look like if anybody tried to steal it.
If you're worried about the continuity of your costume, first of all, if someone's going to bother you about a bag, they might have a bigger problem than you do. But if you want to drop your bag, just make sure that you place it directly behind you so you can feel it at the back of you, but it's not in your pictures and your poses.
Alright, the next bullet point that we want to talk about is treating people with respect. Whether it's other cosplayers, con-goers, vendors, staff, you always want to treat people with respect. Just come up to people and be nice to people no matter what.
Respect their space and their time. We brought the staff down for a reason from the backdrop to here. I'm going to talk about not touching other people's props. So props are a lot like costumes, especially if the person makes their own, or even if they didn't, they spent a lot of money on it. If somebody makes their props or has an expensive prop, don't touch it. And even if you don't think it's that impressive, still don't touch it. You have no idea what kind of work somebody put into a prop or how much money. I don't want to tell you how many hours went into this, it's kind of scary. So don't touch people's stuff. Or if you're going to ask, make sure to ask and make sure that it's fine, because I had a drunk person take the staff once and it was terrifying.
And prop stands for property. So just try to keep that in mind. Just like you wouldn't pick up somebody's cell phone or bag out of respect that that's their property, you wouldn't do the same thing to their prop. The next bullet point that we want to go over is respecting cosplayers' efforts. No matter what that cosplayer looks like, they probably spent a lot of time working on their costume. Even though we use really expensive costumes, we didn't make them ourselves, we still are not going to look down upon somebody else who has made their costume themselves. And maybe it doesn't look as good as your costume if you're cosplaying the same character, but they probably spent hours and hours working on that. So it's always a good thing to remember that even though you think you may look better, they're probably really proud of the time and the effort that they spent putting into their cosplay.
And while we do work in very professional made costumes, we also make our own costumes ourselves. We cosplay and we know what it's like to put a ton of effort into something and have someone really enjoy it. So even if you don't enjoy it, it's better to just not say anything if you're not going to say something nice. So while you're at convention, it's important for you to remember that not only are you cosplaying as one of the characters you might love or something that you might love, you're representing the entire fandom. So if you do something disrespectful or illegal, really seriously, if you do something like that at a convention, you're not only representing yourself and the character, but the entire fandom that you're representing. So remember that you're doing something and you're cosplaying as that because you love it, so don't make it look horrible and stupid.
It's like taking 10 points from Griffindor. Next thing is make sure that you always have your badge on you at all times. I know as someone who staffs convention, it is very, very aggravating if someone has to dig for their bag or if they don't have their bag or their badge on them directly where you can see it. It's better, you know, if you have a place where you can hide it. And there's so many different ways that you can conceal your badge. Like for example, if you're Rapunzel, you can either put it in your satchel
Or behind your hair.
Behind your hair, that's what I did at DragonCon. You can even put it behind you where it's probably not going to be seen in pictures at all. And just try to have your badge on you so it's easily accessible so that you can pull it out if you're trying to go see a panel or get into the dealer's room.